So Pokemon has 5 rarest cards, but little did everyone else know that the 6th rarest card is my population 1 of 1 PSA 9 Metagross holographic from Celestial Storm. There is literally only one of these in the world, and I swear it's not because no one cares and never submitted it before, it's because it's the rarest thing ever. But, of course, CBR and their big Pokemon agenda would never fit it in. Anyways, roll that intro. Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we take a look at the top 5 rarest cards in Pokemon according to CBR. So I recently stumbled across this article and I figured now is about as good a time as any to take a peek at this article. I often like doing this, and when I find it interesting enough that I learn something, or perhaps that it exposes me to a different type of perspective, I do like making a video on it. That's usually the logic that I apply when it comes to determining whether or not one of these articles is worth showing on screen and making a video about. But today's article was something interesting. I definitely learned a little bit, and so I hope we can review the article today and continue to share some of the knowledge that I've gained via this article. So, first thing to note, without further ado, let's get right into it, is obviously they give you a little bit of context saying, hey, it's exploded in popularity. Obviously, it's been around about 25 years now. They give you a little bit of history. Very cute stuff. By the way, this article will be linked down below, so if you want to see any of these hyperlinks or read the full article, you can either pause the video or use the link down below to check the page out. And then they immediately kind of say, like, hey, you know, many think that the most iconic Generation 1 base set cards are the rarest. However, for anyone who is a little bit more actively involved in the Pokemon TCG scene, you know that although they are some of the most sought after cards in the hobby, they're not necessarily the rarest. They are in very high demand, or at least they were for some significant period of time, but the truth of the matter is that those numbers are at least relatively very high compared to some other cards that have literally been printed less than 50 times, less than 10 times, or perhaps even less than that. And so here's a look at 5 cards that are considered the holy grails of Pokemon, not necessarily because they are, you know, so incredibly sought after, but rather because they're lesser known and they're virtually unobtainable, and they're so rare because so few exist, and because of that, they are worth a hefty price. Put a different way, if you're looking at it from the perspective of supply and demand, these cards are in high demand because there is low supply, as opposed to a situation where there is high demand, but there is also high supply of this stuff. And again, all of that is of course relative. Obviously, the number of base set cards is a fraction probably of what, you know, Chilling Reign, Battle Styles, or any other modern set is going to be printed at. But, you know, everything is a matter of perspective. When you're comparing a few 100,000 to a few tens or, you know, hundreds, it obviously really helps to kind of show, like, hey, that is a percentage of a percentage. And so that's why it's important to really think about this stuff from a certain perspective, in addition to the fact that we're going to look at potentially some numbers. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing is the Master's Key. The Master's Key was a recently created Pokemon card. So this is a rare instance where a card that is actually pretty modern compared to some of the more vintage WotC era stuff is actually a card that is carrying a pretty significant premium. The card is more of a prize than a playable card, and was created for the 2010 Japan World Championship TCG tournament. It was given out to tournament finalists, and only 36 tournament participants were awarded a certified copy. Although its owner wouldn't be able to use the Master's Key to their advantage in a game, its rare status makes it incredibly valuable, and just as an example, in 2019, a copy of the card sold for $21,000. Now, I went ahead and did some additional research into this card, which you can actually see on screen right now via this Bulbapedia article. What I found is that the card in English reads draw a card, then flip a coin. If heads, shuffle Master's Key into your deck. So effectively, the card is kind of cool because it basically allows you to draw it again and then play the card, and then draw it again, and then play the card, assuming that your luck is there and you hit heads every time. Now, here's some information that the article doesn't provide that the Wikipedia or Bulbapedia article did. It says that it was awarded to all competitors from each age division and all the competitors from each category in the video game event in the 2010 World Championship representative tournaments. So, interestingly enough, there were 8 competitors in the junior, 6 in the senior, and 6 in the masters. So 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 8 is 20. There are also 8 competitors in the VGC category A, and 8 competitors in the VGC category B, which would be 16. And so that is why the total is 36. It would be 20 total, 8 plus 6 plus 6 for the trading card game championship, and then 16, 8 and 8 for the category A and category B in the video game championship. 20 plus 16 equals 36. From there, it says that, there was some weird set of structure for the different card games and the different stuff, as well as the location being the Tokyo Dome City Complex in Tokyo on June 20th, 2010, again confirming the idea that this card is in fact quite recent compared to some of the other cards that we're going to see on the list. Now, one thing of trivia that I thought was actually very important is that based on the distribution at finals, 36 cards were created, obviously, for the finalists that we've outlined above. But interestingly enough, unlike the 2009 finals, the video game competitors were also awarded this card. So it wasn't just the TCG players winning this prize, but also the VGC players winning this prize. And the only difference was the trophy case. And it was red with the trading card game logo if you won it for the trading card game. And if you won it for the VGC, or the Video Game Championship, you were awarded it in a blue case with the Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver logos on it. So it's actually pretty neat because there are obviously only 36 of these in the world, of which 20 of them are in a red case and 16 of them would be in a blue case. Again, pretty neat, all things considered, and just some additional fun facts that weren't included in the original article that I thought were actually pretty interesting and hope to pass along. Next up is the 20th anniversary 24 karat gold Pikachu. So famous cards get more and more rare and expensive every day, and Pikachu's trading card is no different. 5 years ago, to celebrate the 20th anniversary, a Japanese gold maker, Jinza Tanaka, helped create a limited series of Pikachu cards, and the amount of the Pikachu cards in existence is actually unknown. They did say it's limited edition, so you have to assume the number is relatively small, but again, pretty interesting that this is actually not an official TCG card, but rather a more commemorative release. And the card was on sale for a brief time in the fall of 2016 with a price of approximately $2,000 US. Now, I was able to, again, do some additional research, and I was able to find that card. So here is the Jinza Tanaka limited edition card. It's on sale at PokeVault over on eBay. So if you look this card up, you will find it. As you can see, it's a almost true to form replication of the card, simply in gold. And there is like the certificate of authenticity. The back of the card looks pretty cool. You obviously have basically everything looking almost exactly like the original card, minus the fact that yes, it is in fact made of 24 karat gold. So that is pretty neat. And all things considered, looks pretty cool. Why this was selected for this list, I don't quite understand. I do realize the card is quite expensive, but there isn't a numerical number that we can see here. And obviously Pokemon has had tons of limited edition stuff. I think because it's a Pikachu card, 24 karat, and 20th anniversary related, I think that's why this particular card was included on this list. But I thought it was pretty interesting because obviously Pokemon would have had to have collaborated with Jinza in order to make this stuff. So I think it is pretty cool because I hope we can maybe see something similar for the 25th anniversary. Imagine if they released a Charizard card like that or something of the effect. Next up is the Pikachu Illustrator card. Now, there are tons of articles and videos about this. SM Pratt's logo is this card, so this is one of those cards that I believe is a little bit more known. So I won't be showing a picture of it because there's actually a pretty good representation of the card right here. But just as a bit of context, the Japanese Illustrator Pikachu card was only given out to winners of a 1998 illustration contest, and there were only 39 of these cards ever created. Basically, you had to draw something, and if you were impressive enough, you were awarded the card. In 2016, an Illustrator sold for over $50,000 at heritage auctions, and then in 2019, one sold for $195,000 US. So, safe to say, the card is very sought after, the card has a lot of history behind it, and the card is actually a pretty cool design. It's basically Pikachu jumping, and obviously they did it so that, like, it's illustrating, right? It has like its little pen, its little paper, and it's doing its thing. So it's actually a pretty cool card with a really interesting backstory. Hopefully, 3 cards in, you're beginning to see one pattern, is that it's usually cards with some sort of limited release or incredibly rare circumstance around it that usually generates the type of hype around a card that obviously makes it become valuable over time. And that's something that you should apply as you're looking for opportunities to perhaps invest or opportunities to build a really rare collection. You want to go out of your way to find very particular cards that meet this very weird high-end criteria. Now, at the end of the day, is it completely reasonable to say, oh yeah, I totally knew the Master's Key was going to be perfect for investing? No, I totally get that. You know, this was a card that, although there were only 36 ever made, there might have been other cards that met similar criteria. But sometimes you just have to, roll the dice and see how well you do. Other times, for something like this was a $2,000 initial ask. As of right now, listed on eBay for $10,000. So obviously, it can depend on the situation. Sometimes they're going to ask a lot of money up front because it's obviously worth its weight in gold, quite literally. And other times, you're just going to have to take the risk. And then other times, things become very apparent right off the bat. Of course, it wouldn't be a Pokemon rare cards list if we didn't have first edition Holographic Charizard number 4. Obviously, I won't spend too much time on this one or show you anything really fancy. Obviously, Charizard is not too far behind in terms of popularity for Pokemon, and the most famous Charizard card probably will be the first edition holographic from 1999, as it only has 2,627 certified copies. So this number was a little confusing to me. I assume it's a combination of BGS, PSA, maybe CGC, since a lot of you guys like CGC. I'm going to probably start having to mention it in videos, but I assume it's some sort of number thing where it's like they're adding up at least the ones we know of and hoping that math kind of makes sense. Obviously, that's a very specific number, 2627, so they had to have some math behind that. I kind of wish they had left a footnote, but I mean, we'll have to trust that number is correct. And honestly, I think it is reasonable because it's probably a very submitted card, assuming you can get your hands on it. So it's probably just a situation like that where, obviously people are just kind of adding up some numbers and hoping for the best. Obviously they do a little chirpy line about how cool you'd be if you had the card in your deck, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously the card's value has only grown in the 2 decades since its launch. This year it sold at auction for over $100K. Last year, the rapper Logic made headlines when he bought a Charizard card for $183,000. The one thing that I would say, maybe in criticism of this article, is the sort of, not purposefully deceptive, but perhaps less articulate writing style that they're using here. I know for a fact that this was a PSA 10 that rapper Logic bought, but the way that they wrote it, it sounds like he just bought the card. He bought a graded copy of the card. Also, it's not certified copies. I'm nearly positive the correct phrasing, or at least the more accurate phrasing, would have been graded copies of the card. And finally, but not least, I don't even know what this means. This year, it sold at auction for over $100,000. I suppose we can open this link in a new tab and find out. So let's see right here. This is a Gem Mint 10, and apparently, when is this dated is the real question. Yeah, this was on January 5th of 2021. So, and this is a rare Pokemon card, is on track to sell for well over $100,000. So far, 22 parties have bid on the item, and the next bid must be at least $110,000. So I don't necessarily know that it was quite a fair statement to make there, but I mean, they'll certainly go on as they will. But again, this is why we look at these articles. This is why we think about them analytically. We say to ourselves, hey, are they really writing it the way that they should? And no, this is a very good example of how hype mongering happens around these cards, because obviously some of that stuff is just a tad bit confusing if you aren't in the hobby already. And so reading it from outside the hobby can be a little tricky. Finally but not least, number 1 trainer. So this is a pretty cool card, and this is the one that we're going to be ending on today. The rarest Pokemon card in existence. It doesn't have to be a Pikachu or a Charizard. It just has a silhouette of a Mewtwo, and you can see that right over here, but I'm also going to show you guys a picture of this card in a little bit. Now, this is a pretty cool card. Only 7 copies exist of the super secret battle number 1 trainer. They were created in the late 90s and had to be won in a regional event. The 7 winners who won this card got to participate in a secret tournament during the summer of 1999. A fascinating and mysterious event which adds lore to the Pokemon trading card. And yeah, last year one sold for $90,000. So if you think it's pennies on the dollar, my friends, you are quite wrong. Now here is a picture of the card, and it's thankfully a lot higher resolution, or at least larger, than the one that we saw a little whiles ago. This is what they were saying about when they say that there is a silhouette of the Mewtwo. You can see it shaped out in holographic. And again, you won this card, and then because you won this card, you were allowed to participate in the super secret battle. So this is pretty cool, because this was not only a trading card in the sense that, you know, you were awarded this for winning, but in addition to everything else, this was also a ticket. It granted you access to a pretty interesting part of the Pokemon TCG of the time, which was this super secret event that no one else was able to attend. So I think the exclusivity behind this card definitely makes it a really cool card. So with all that said, friends, as we're looking back at this article and more or less in summary, I hope you can take away a few things. Obviously, there are many different types of trading cards out there, and many of them derive value not only from their ability to, you know, impress or have a fan favorite Pokemon on them, but also because of the rarity, right? With the Master's Key, we saw that there's only 36, and they were awarded under very specific pretenses. With the 24 karat gold Pikachu, it's obviously a card that required a pretty significant investment up front, but was also very much worth it in the long run, especially given the little bit of mystique around the limited edition release of it, and the fact that it's literally made out of 24 karat gold. The Pikachu Illustrator card will forever and always be one of the holy grails of this hobby, given how storied it is, but I hope one of the things you take away from this is that opportunities exist all around you, especially in situations like the Master's Key, which was released back in 2010. The first edition Charizard, obviously not much to say other than it's a Charizard, so of course. And for the number 1 trainer, definitely a very unique and very oddly specific set of circumstances, but a really interesting story that I think highlights, you know, not all Pokemon cards were promotional in the sense that they were just widely distributed. So that is pretty cool because it adds a little bit of history to the card, and I think that is awesome. As you take this information, I hope the one thing you can do is keep your eye out for opportunities that may be playing out in current real time, and hopefully use those to accomplish your goals in the hobby as well. But as always, friends, thank you again for checking out another video. With all that said, I appreciate your viewership, and as I always say, you could have been anywhere on the internet, but you chose to spend some time with me, and that means the world. Don't forget, if you learned something new today, or if you like one of the cards you saw on screen, leave a like on the video, and if you're not already, feel free to subscribe and join the Gengar Gang. Other than that, friends, thank you again for checking out another video, and we will talk soon. Peace!